Welcome everyone to our first ever Resilient Palisades removal of invasive plants orientation. We're going to be learning a lot today about invasive plants. We're going to keep it relatively mellow, the vocabulary and plants. I use the common names rather than the Latin names. It's just easy for me and for us, for all of us here, to just go ahead and call them by their common names. Removal of invasive plants. Here we are. So, what are invasive plants? Well, invasive plants are non-native species introduced to a new environment, either accidentally or intentionally, that spread aggressively and causes these three: economic, environmental, or human health harm. Now, the thing that really goes to show you the impact of invasive plants are pictures. As we see here, we have Cape ivy on our left screen. As you can see, that is taking over quite a bit of the vegetation there. It's hard to even make out what else is there other than the Cape ivy. And then on our right side, we have Mexican fan palm, and that is another invasive plant within the Southern California region and West Coast itself. But here you can see a lot of leaf litter. So in this case here, it's harming the environment. The economic side of the harm is, well, during fires that burn, and it costs us taxpayers money and the fire department and such, the government, state government, to put those fires out. Here are a couple of locations that have, again, infestations. One of Cape ivy there, the other of castor bean, which some of you may be aware of. I know us volunteers certainly we're aware of it. There is plenty of it here, unfortunately, in the Palisades. Quite a bit of castor bean, and that is clearly labeled there. And it's a non-native invasive that certainly takes over once fires have happened. And in this case, in Temescal Canyon, there are many infestations of castor bean. Cape ivy, we're going to do a spotlight on Cape ivy because of the impact that it has once it is out of control. It's extremely aggressive. And as you can see in these photos here, it certainly takes over an environment. Um, we may have all heard of fire ladders. Oops. Oh, thank you, sir. I think you allowed that person in. Thank you. Fire ladders. So that's the base leading upwards, likely into trees, buildings, and such. But in this case, it's the vegetation, the native vegetation, the trees, the shrubs, where Cape ivy takes over, covers the plants, smothers the plants, kills those plants below it. And of course, seasonally, Cape ivy does die out, die back, new growth on top of old growth. What does that all mean for us? More fires, more fuel for the fires. And it reduces biodiversity. That's a huge issue with invasive plants, is it reduces the native biodiversity. And then we're talking plants and animals, insects. I'd like to move on to canary palms. Canary palms, while beautiful in the urban areas, they can be quite troublesome outside of those urban areas, our neighborhoods and such, businesses and the like. This all these pictures here have been either taken in Temescal Canyon, Los Leones, Pacific Coast Highway, all throughout the Pacific Palisades, a little bit into Malibu, a little bit into Santa Monica, but you'll get the picture that it's not just in those locations here in Southern California. It is more widespread as you go on into Los Angeles, into Orange County, higher up into Santa Barbara and such. But canary palms are an issue. They likely escape our residential and urban areas. And in this case here with this picture, they are in Temescal Canyon parkland. And the parkland is already stretched so thin. So there's that common argument in favor of palm trees, canary palms, and Mexican fan palms that, oh, well, we simply have to just care for them, treat them, uh, you know, uh, clear off the debris, the leaf litter and such, clean the base, which it's clean here because this tree in particular was closer to the entrance of the park. So it did have some maintenance. Um, but as we'll see as we continue on, that isn't always the case. The leaf litter does build up, and with leaf litter comes again fire. A lot of these plants will um, generate massive amounts of litter that then goes towards our fires. These young palms, they're often adorned with very long spikes. In this picture, you won't see that because this tree is more mature, but we'll have some other examples where they're lower to the ground, and that's quite dangerous, especially for children. It reduces the natural beauty of our parks. This doesn't look to me very attractive. I hope that what this presentation will show you all is that you'll see nature differently. You'll see invasive plants and how they affect our environment in a way that reduces the value, the beauty of this natural environment that this invasive plant has taken over. Now, what we see here is quite a mess. This was before the fire, I'll note. These pictures were taken in September of 2024, right? 2024. Fire was in, yeah, 2024. Thank you. Um, so, what, 4 months before the fires? I went on a nice hike with my wife, Sarah, who's also present, and I took photos of over a dozen palm trees. Well, I'm just going to give you a sample size here, but you get the idea. These palm trees are clearly not being kept up. The leaf litter builds up, and what does that do? It creates more fuel for fire, and it reduces the beauty of our parks. You can also make note of the eucalyptus there in front on the picture of the right, but you can see I've used some arrows there, drawn some arrows. There's quite a bit of those palm trees in just such a small section of the creek. That is the creek. Again, and that brings another point. Palm trees love water. So you're reducing the watershed. You're reducing the amount of water that should be going towards native plants that these thirsty palm trees are now taking advantage of. They like the water there. So not only the leaf litter, fire fuel, reduced biodiversity, reduces the natural beauty of our parks. They also drink a lot of water. Here again isn't just another example. Now this one was on Temescal Canyon Road, more in the urban area, and yet this is before the fire, not kept up, not cleaned up. And that's the goal of removal of invasive plants. Now I can't necessarily remove a palm tree, but what we can do is safeguard our community by cleaning that up, putting pressure on the park system to remove a tree like that. I don't believe that tree is around anymore. It likely succumbed to the fire. These pictures, again, were taken in September of 2024, and the locations vary. Temescal Canyon, Los Leones, Pacific Coast Highway, Topanga, urban settings. They're all over the place. Santa Clarita. And then lastly, more of the same, more palm trees, overabundance of them. These are kept up, as you can even see in this right picture on the right, where you can tell that it looks like the park system or the county, LA County, someone cleaned up the grasses down there, the lower corner there, and likely cleaned up even around the palms. Now, had that all been now, this area here did not burn much during the fire. In one part, because there's a natural spring behind it, hence why there's so many palms that like the water. And two, likely they were cleaned up. They look cleaned up to me. So that reduced the chances of those trees in that area being on fire. But let's imagine if they were full of leaf litter, likely that area would have been badly damaged by the fires. And it's unfortunate because it's a beautiful area when you're not looking so much at the palm trees. We were just there. We were just there today, in fact, and we did some restoration work, which we'll get into all that shortly. Moving on to castor bean. I mentioned this earlier in the presentation. Castor bean, it's another non-native invasive plant that can create dense bush-like towering tree structures that shade out native vegetation, that again reduce our biodiversity. They can create monospecific stands. Okay, now a stand is just a cluster of one of the same plant, a monoculture. And then you can see in this picture here, quite a bit of castor bean. In these pictures here, you get a little bit of a close-up of them. They've got kind of a star-shaped leaf, almost kind of gives the marijuana leaf vibe to it. They really stand out. They look very odd. I've got some interesting pictures of them where they're like red, bright purple, almost like a Dr. Seuss sort of plant. They just don't look right in our environment. And both of these have been taken in both Temescal Canyon and Los Leones. They're also very poisonous. The all parts of the plant are poisonous. Granted, they do use castor bean for castor oil, but nonetheless, it's a very poisonous plant. The seeds themselves can contain ricin, which is extremely deadly to humans. So these are definitely plants that you don't want to handle uh, without safety gear, gloves. We move on to fennel. Now, this is a useful plant to some. They use it for cooking. Has a nice aroma, smell to it, almost like a licorice, right? But it is another plant that creates dense stands, a lot of foliage. When they dry out, they become fire hazards. They reduce biodiversity. They prevent native plant species from establishing because of a specific compound chemical that's emitted from their roots. Not dangerous to us, but dangerous to native plants. So I think you guys get the idea. The plants that we're going to be talking about here all hit those same markers, forming dense stands, creating fire fuel, reducing biodiversity, harming the watershed, harming the native soils. In this case, they drastically alter the composition structure of plant communities. The picture on the left was before the fires. The picture on the right was after the fires. They came right back, if they were even damaged at all, but they came right back, no problem. They'll take over after a fire much quicker than our native plants can come back from. Again, here's Temescal Canyon Road. Um, Quite a bit of vegetation there, quite a bit of fennel. This was before the fire this picture was taken. The fennel is unfortunately coming back in this area. We hope to manage that. The park system has been managing, thankfully, a lot of Temescal Canyon Road. We are as well. We've worked on the rotary site at the bottom, the base of Temescal Canyon. And recently, today, in fact, we worked right beside Palisades High and we removed quite a bit of fennel. The picture on the left here, fennel that have been removed. We remove the tops, but of course you have to get the taproot, the entire taproot. Otherwise, the plant will just come right back because it's got all that energy below in the root. So even if you hack the top off, all the energy is stored in the root. So as you can see here on the picture on the left, those are some deep roots. Those are crazy tap roots. And that's just a handful of fennel. There were at least certainly hundreds of fennel in just this one location that we've managed. Pretty tough, very tough plant, in fact. I know Aton knows that. Sarah, Alex, they've all been aware of this plant. They know it's a difficult plant to manage, but that's where RIP comes in. We can handle that. And the picture on the right was in Los Leones. It's kind of hard to make out, but that's the idea in a sense that you've got this plant growing amongst native plants and you give it the opportunity to continue to grow. It will push out native plants. It will create fuel for fire. We're going to move on to a very troublesome plant that many of you may be aware of, fountain grass. It's highly prevalent throughout Southern California, throughout pretty much the West Coast, all up the coastline of California. It's a problematic plant in that, once again, it makes areas that infests very vulnerable to fire, dries out, and the grasses are well adapted to fire, so they will continue to come back. And that's the problem that we have here. The fires you'd think would just destroy the plant. Nope. These fountain grasses, they're used to it. They're from a region in Africa that, it's just adapted to the fire in that case. And they were planted ornamentally. They escaped someone's yard, however many decades ago or so. And now we unfortunately have to deal with them. And that's what we plan to do, remove them from our environment. As you can see here, they are growing all along the landscape here, even within the cracks of the street. They're very formidable plants. They're very resilient. They'll do whatever it takes to continue on. And again, they damage our landscape. They reduce the beauty of it, the biodiversity, a lot of fuel for fire. Another example, just a little bit of a close-up. That's kind of like a fire ladder almost from the base of this hillside up. We don't want that, right? We want to remove that to better safeguard our environment, our homes, native vegetation from these ensuing fires. And these examples, every time I drive on the 405, I can't take my eyes off of them. Okay, I do, of course, because I'm driving. But just take a look at that. Like that doesn't look right. That's not good. That's not healthy. That's fire prone. That's pushing out native plants. So you can kind of see the native shrubs on the periphery there on the outsides. That's not good. Now that's going to take some work with the state itself. We do not want to plant that. That's a goal of ours, is to plant native. We have resources for that. You can ask questions at the end of the Zoom in regards to what we can plant. We have a lot of resources in regards to that. But fountain grass is very detrimental to our environment. And I think these two pictures show you enough that that is not what we want to have around us anymore. That brings us to another grass, pampas grass. It's like what 10 times larger can become than the fountain grass itself. And this is quite a tough plant to remove when it's that size right there. It meets all the markers. It overtakes our native landscape, pushes out native plants. It can transform actually the habitat. And that's not a good thing either, because then what you have to do is, well, a lot of work. We're not going to get into that, but you can get the idea that it's going to do something that's harmful to the environment. And it can become dry and then become more fuel for fire. And as we continue on here, we got more of them. Now, this is in Temescal Canyon Road, again, right by Palisades High. This area did not burn, again, because I believe in part that when there's a natural spring there, hence why there's a lot of this kind of plant growth because they love the water. So these look healthy. These did not burn. But as you see here, this is not good. This is not good. Now, the picture on the left there is on Pacific Coast Highway at some unknown location. I did not take it. I searched for it, and it was a really clear example of, well, you allow this plant to take over, it will take over and will create what we know as monocultures. That is a monoculture of pampas grass. And there's not much else that's going to grow there because these plants are quite large. They take up a lot of space. They push out native biodiversity. And on the picture on the right, again, massive. The picture almost doesn't give you the scale of how large this plant is. I think I measured it over 20 feet in width. So it's pushing out a lot. And again, it's a huge fire hazard. The plants in front of it are native. Those are cattails. So those are good. We want those. Those are great. But behind it, the pampas grass is no good. We don't want those. This is just kind of something funny that I found online. I used to play Magic the Gathering growing up, but I found this card to be an exceptional card because of the flavor text at the bottom, which reads, "How have I angered nature that she would imprison me in a labyrinth of grass?" And we've done that. We've certainly had such a influence in our environment by bringing these non-native grasses, we'll keep it at that, like the pampas and the fountain, that they're creating, a prison for us that we need to deal with. And that's what removal of invasive plants and resilient palisades and whomever we partner up with, what we want to do. We want to fix this environment. We want to bring it back to an ecological balance that's healthy for the native fauna and flora and us. This is an example of an environment that is probably 90%, if not more, native, excluding that back wall there. That's owned by the city, as I was told. But as you can see, look how beautiful that is. You've got some deer grass, you've got sage plants. It's beautiful. It's much more spread out. And a lot of this at this time this picture was taken, it had they planted some plants, but other plants just self-sowed. They planted, they came up on their own. And that's the environment we want to see. That, not that. That's not healthy. That's not good for us or the native flora and fauna. I love deer grass too, Vicky. Thank you. Sorry, checking out the chat there, everyone. But that's a beautiful. If you have not been there to the Westwood Greenway, located in Santa Monica, I don't know the exact address. If someone has it, please put it in the chat. It's a beautiful area. They do tours. We've worked with them, bringing out some young people to do some removal work. Aton might have been there, I want to say.
Yeah, I was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great. That's a beautiful area. That's what we want the Palisades to look like. We want more of this. We want more balance. We want more native plants. And it can be achieved, as you can see here. And as you can see in the Palisades, we have some areas that we've been working on, and we're working on getting it to more of a sound environment that works best for all. But it takes collaboration with many organizations, and we've been so grateful to work with MRCA, Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority. They've been really huge with us. We're currently working in Temescal Canyon Park, restoring the creek, restoring the outer portions of the creek. We're restoring within the entrances of Temescal Canyon Park. We want to get it to an environment that's safe for all, that can be beautiful, that we can all enjoy. We work today with Heal the Bay, doing a bio blitz, doing a lot of removal work. We removed some pampas grasses, we removed some castor bean, fennel, a few other plants that I did not put in this presentation, but we will have more presentations because there are more invasive plants in our environment. We also hope we also work with the California Native Plant Society. My mentor, in fact, is the president of the West chapter of the California Native Plant Society, Bill Neal. He taught me a lot, and I'm using that to steward the land appropriately. So again, collaboration is so vital. We have to work together in order to achieve the goal of ecological balance. So, what has RIP, removal of invasive plants, done for the community so far? We'll take a look. This just makes me so happy to see this. This is volunteer work, effort, on the account of all of you, and I hope that the ones here in this presentation that you will be a part of this. That's our goal, to get the community. It feels so good. Trust me, it feels so good being out there, from whether you're a teenager up there or an elder, and everyone in between. We want you out there. Everyone matters. Every little bit you can do. 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. It matters. So some of the sites we've worked on, if you go to your upper left, that was with Palisades High. We hosted an event there on Bowden Street, removing non-native plants. The high schoolers did a superb job, as well as Aton, who's in the chat. My wife Sarah and I, we do a lot of tabling events. This has been Earth Month for us, so we've been at a lot of events, and we will continue to pound the table that this work is very important, and that we care about the Pacific Palisades. It's our home. The picture beside it was taken at the Rotary site, which is at the base of Temescal Canyon Park and Pacific Coast Highway. We spent a few hours out there removing invasive plants, and that was to achieve an Eagle Scout project for Miss Gabby. It's pictured there alongside her fellow scouts. Pictured on the far right. We did some home restoration work. Unfortunately, there's this deadline that the city wants to do, which is a bit, much. May 1st, we got to remove vegetation. That's what we did. We've gone to several homes and helped out homeowners who are in need of that help. There's that gap. We helping them out, all volunteer work, removing, clearing their lots. And as you can see, the pictures below tell the similar story of just community coming together, bringing in people of all ages, of all backgrounds, removing plants, and bringing ecological balance. It's a beautiful thing. These will be tools that you volunteers will be utilizing. We have the Hori Hori knife, which is in the center there. It's a very helpful tool that helps extract tap roots, the whole plant itself, right? We have our loppers on the right-hand corner there. Those are very useful for clipping larger plants like the castor bean and bringing it down to scale to where that you can then extract it with a trench shovel. Those are our friends, trench shovels, root shovels, and the like, a lot of tools. But of course, safety is our number one priority. We got to look out for each other, and in doing so, you got to wear the proper gear, and that's gloves, pictured there. with Sarah. We've got the orange gloves. You've got your face mask to help protect against the air particulates, the soil contamination, if in fact it's contaminated. We want to take, use our best practices and just assume that everything is kind of contaminated. And for our safety and yours, we suggest wearing N95 masks. We have our eyewear protectors. It's not pictured here, but we do use helmets when we're in Temescal Canyon Park. That's just their rules. So we have some nice bright yellow helmets that are fit to size. Of course, long sleeve shirt, long pants, closed toes shoes, boots. That's how we go out in the field. That's the work that we do. That's what we use in order to protect ourselves. And protocol guidelines include correctly identifying plants. We want to, of course, leave the native plants. That's what sets us apart from other, mostly county or city governments. They tend to just go in there with weed whackers and just go crazy, not caring about what they're hacking. But we got to work with nature, not against it completely. So we are very aware and careful of identifying the correct plants that we want to remove and keep in place. And obviously, we keep those native plants in place. Using appropriate removal tools and methods is very important. There's some really good tips that I'll share with you all at some point when we're out in the fields of how to appropriately and, well, put in less effort because you have a lot of energy that we're going to want to use throughout those many hours of removing plants, and those methods are important. We also want to prevent the spread of seeds and other plant material, rhizomes, which are root systems. We don't want to, for instance, the Cape ivy. We don't want portions of that to be dropped because that little bit of Cape ivy, whether it be the leaf or the stem, can just start a whole new growth. So we don't want that. And certainly with seed too. We don't want to spread seed, whether it be in that particular environment or take it home with us and then spread it there. So we're very aware to, check our body before we pretty much leave the area, vacate the premises by removing any seeds, and rhizomes or whatever that seems to want to hitchhike with us. We also want to protect our soil and surrounding habitat. So we don't want to just hack away at everything that we see. We want to respect our environment. That's huge for us. We want to respect it. We don't want to just weed whack everything. We don't want to just go crazy with our axes or shovels and just start going bananas. We want to be very respectful to our environment. So it brings us to our goals and future projects. So for all you volunteers, thank you again for being here. We have upwards of 80 volunteers so far on our list. We've utilized some, we'd like to utilize more, and we will definitely have lots of upcoming projects to do so. So we plan on meeting several times a month, and likely that'll be weekends. Once summer comes, we'll probably, include weekdays in hopes that there will be those available. We would like to prevent, of course, the future growth and spread of other non-native invasive plants that seem to be finding their way here. Certainly after the fire, there's been some new ones that I've been finding that we want to really control and not allow, prevent them from spreading. And of course, we want to replace those invasive plants with native plants. And that'll be everywhere, not just our parklands, but throughout the Pacific Palisades, whether that be in the school landscaping, along sidewalks, medians, right of ways, your homes, your home landscape. We hope you go primarily, if not entirely, native plants, and then of course businesses. And I understand there's always that thought, oh, we just want something that's easy to take care of. Well, easy to take care of has gotten us to a point where our hillsides are covered in an easy plant like fountain grass that's now a huge fire hazard. So easy isn't always the best practice. We'd also like to begin the process of removing all pampas grass from Temescal Canyon and then move outward towards Pacific Coast Highway because they're all over there too. There's also another plant called giant reed, Arundo donax, which I didn't put in the presentation. If any of you at the end would like to see that during the questions and answers, I'd be more than happy to show you. We do have some locations of giant reed, and that is an insane plant. We don't want that to spread. So that's going to be a goal of ours is to remove the few locations that I've taken note of and marked on our mapping to remove it. Of course, we'd like to continue partnering with all entities here, all the schools, all of you Palisadians, all of you from Malibu, Santa Monica, Brentwood, the park services, any grassroots organizations, because it's power in numbers. It's going to take all of us. Collaboration is so important. And my final thought, this is a great quote from kind of the father, if you will, of invasive species, Charles S. Elton. He says here, if we look far enough ahead, the eventual state of the biological world will become not more complex, but simpler and poorer. For Ron and anyone else who came a bit late, that's not what we want. That's a poor environment. That is not a healthy environment. Okay. And that's not what we want our Palisades, Malibu, Brentwood, Santa Monica, areas that have been affected by fire to look like anymore. We want to avoid this, and it's going to take all of us. There it is. Real quick, everyone. That's a Rhododendron. That's giant reed. Now that was before the fire. It's a lot more tame right now. There's a smaller amount of vegetation. It's that grass. Okay, it looks like bamboo. It's a grass. It's a grass that can grow over 20 feet tall. It's extremely difficult to remove. It's got castor bean below it. Extremely difficult to remove. Certainly in that at that stature, at that state. Look at how crazy that is. Um, and that's a very poor environment. That is a very simple and poor environment right there. We don't want that. That concludes this presentation. Please, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or speak, I guess, freely. I'm here for you. We can go back to slides. We can talk more.
Thank you, Jordan. That was a really great presentation. Since we have a couple of minutes, do you want to briefly mention some other plants that people might want to be aware of?
Well, there's giant reed, everyone. That's actually in Topanga. Topanga has a huge issue with the giant reed. On our left there, that's what's known as a rhizome. Now, that's not just specific to giant reed. Most grasses have rhizomes. Um, and there's a very problematic and difficult to handle root systems because, again, you can just hack off the top of the plant, but a lot of that energy is stored there in the rhizome. And it's quite a bit of mess. That's insanely difficult to remove right there. There's me with some giant reed. I shouldn't be happy, but I'm smiling for some reason. Very tall grass, 20 feet tall right there. There's a couple more examples of how insane that could get. And we have, unfortunately, some of that in the Pacific Palisades. Not pictured though, that I didn't bring up. Black mustard. Those are all over our hillsides. Those are the ones with the yellow flowers. They bloom, they look pretty, the hillsides are covered in yellow, and then they die out and they just become dry. And it really makes our hillsides less beautiful and, of course, prone to fire. Other invasive plants that we've seen after the fire, wild radish, tree tobacco, a lot of castor bean. That's castor bean, so plenty of castor bean. I've been seeing a lot of ox tongue, which is, I believe, from Eurasia. That can become a big plant. Another really crazy plant species are thistles. So we've come across Maltese star thistle. Aton and I removed some of that yesterday at Will Rogers Park. Maltese star thistle. Um, and everyone here, or I can enter that into the chat. Maltese star thistle, look into those ones. If you see those, please try to remove them before they seed. And that goes with a lot of these invasive plants. We have Italian thistle, sow thistle, milky thistle. Those are all very problematic. Bull thistle. Those are all problematic plants that are uh, very sharp when they mature in size, and they can also create dense monocultures that, again, um, are not good for fire. What is the 2657? Oh,
I
okay.
put the Westwood
Yes,
Greenway in
Westwood
here.
Greenway.
Mhm.
Yeah, everyone here. Yeah, please check out the Westwood Greenway. That's our goal for the Pacific Palisades is to get a lot of the more public land, and even your gardens, even your landscapes to be more like that. Here, I'll go back to that slide. That's what we want. Biodiversity. Of course, we probably don't have a creek running through our yards or our backyard, but that's the idea of having native biodiversity. It just looks a lot cleaner. It's more safe. It's more human and health friendly, and it supports far more biodiversity than an area that is, right, just consumed by monocultures of fennel or castor bean or palms like that. That's not good.
Let's see, Alex in the chat said, where do we draw the border of what's considered a native plant in our region? Are all California native plants safe for this region, including ones from the north, or do we strictly focus on Southern California natives? Is there a good overlap of native plants from the south of the border?
Yeah, no, that's true. And that's kind of the argument for some when it comes to the Mexican fan palm. There are areas in Southern California, not where we are though, that they're considered native. Um, Still kind of learning a lot about that and other plants. We have come across some native plants where we've used identification apps in order to kind of get an idea as to where that plant came from. And sometimes it'll say Northern California or maybe even Central California. And well, it's like a rating, right? If you have a plant that's very prolific, will likely, and yet it is from Northern California, we'll probably remove that, even if it is California native. Um, it's just, again, it comes down to how how common we might see that plant, and if it is causing one of those problems, whether it be well, the three problems: economic, human health, and then of course spreading aggressively, outcompeting native plants.
When you spoke about the wild fennel and how it pushes out native plants through a process that it does, is that
Yeah.
similar to tree of heaven and castor
Mm.
bean? Are they both allelopathic? You used that word
Yeah.
for one plant before.
Yeah, yeah, allelopathic is a chemical compound that yeah, that is emitted from the root system of these plants. Fennel, castor bean, black mustard. They found it to even be in eucalyptus. They've even found it to be in the eucalyptus leaves itself. So once those leaves fall on the ground, then those leaves will emit that chemical that changes the soil chemistry and then inhibit takes away the growth of native um, plant matter. Um, so it's very problematic in that way too, which is just a double whammy. Fennel does that. And guys, again, this is just a taste. This is just a small sample size of invasive plants. I know I just went over some of them. Black mustard, that's not pictured here. Ox tongue, not pictured here. Um, of course, just many annual grasses, whether that be smooth brome, cheatgrass, Medusa head, wild oat, a lot of these annual grasses, wild fescue. Those are problematic to crabgrass, torpedo grass. Those grasses are horrible. We also don't want those. So if you can avoid replanting those kind of grasses in place of a lawn, unfortunately, I don't have a list of native grasses, but again, we have a lot of resources on our website, resilientpalisades.org/REP, that can go in more detail to what you can plant in place of these non-native, troublesome invasive plants.
And
And
for anyone
again,
who wants to volunteer, we do have a sign up form on our website, resilientpalisades.org/RIP. We're going to be doing a lot of restoration work in the months to come, as Jordan mentioned. We want to thank you all for being here today. If anyone has any last minute questions, speak now or wait until the next one. But thank you again.
yeah, I appreciate everyone being here. When you go out there and start working, you really understand, and maybe some of you already are working out there on your own, removing invasive plants. So thank you for that. But you'll really feel a sense of pride that we can really make a difference here. And let me go real quick so everybody can see this again because it's just such a beautiful thing to see the community come together of all ages and backgrounds. Everyone felt so good about the work they've done. I mean, it's really incredible to see, especially teenagers, where they come up and they say, like, I feel so good about what I just did. I feel so good. I can't wait to come back. I'm excited. It's like, yes, that's what we want our youth to be involved with. So I thank you all for being here today. Look forward to seeing you out there. Let your friends and family know that Resilient Palisades is there for you. Reach out to us, sign up. Let's get going. Let's get started. Thank you.